Leaf is giving me that. All right, I got 6 o'clock. So, 6 o'clock, gonna call the regular select board meeting to order. So exciting, we're coming to you live from the 3rd floor of the Memorial Building. That's awesome. So first item is to adjust the agenda. Does anybody have anything we need to add or delete or amend?
The what?
The tax rate thing. Or just do it under
That's part of John's report.
Tax rate thing? We were talking about, I think that we were gonna, I emailed everybody.
Okay.
And
that's for next time, right?
And that would be for next time.
Okay.
All right. So nothing, we're gonna roll with the agenda we have. Next is to approve minutes, and we have minutes from a regular meeting, the last one, which was May 20th, and special meeting, which was the 26th.
Yeah,
I move that we approve the regular select board meeting minutes of May 20th and the special meeting minutes of May 26th as written.
Second.
Any discussion, any changes on those, or are people good? I thought they were good. We didn't read them super carefully, but I thought I did skim them. All right, so all in favor, please say aye.
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 We don't have to raise
We
our
don't have to raise our
hands.
hands. Motion carries. Yay. All right, next is communication from the audience. Anybody here to communicate something that we're not going to talk about later on the agenda? Yes.
Can it just be a thank you to the Hardwick Police?
Sure. Can you state your name, Jason?
Jason Bonner.
Okay.
And living in town, there's been a lot of just random traffic going too fast and zipping by, and noticing that the police step their game up to something really nice, and a lot of people have actually mentioned that. So it feels really good in town right now.
Great.
So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right. Great. Thanks. Next, town manager's report. John Jewett.
Gonna be brief.
Excellent.
It is really. I just want to mention that we're dealing with a couple of health cases, health officer cases, and one that's pretty bad that that the fire marshals have been in on, and DCF has been in on as well. And it's a rental where the state is actually paying the rent for the tenant. And the conditions are really bad, so we're trying to work to get them out of there, not throw them out on the street. So I haven't hesitated to do a health order, but I could actually do a health order and order them out of there because the place is terrible. It's a mess. But anyway, so that's one. And I have another one it's a health issue, and it's a tenant non-payment and landlord issue too in the middle of it. That's what it usually is anyway. And I expect to see a few more of those because of the fact that of COVID and people not having money and things like that. And that has structural problems and vermin problems and things like that. So we're dealing with that. The landlord's working on the property. So Sean had gone into both those properties, and so I'm just following up with that. Then we have wrote to the people that own the Robitaille place down here to ask them to better secure the property and just do some maintenance on it. And of course, Melissa's in jail, I think, at this point. So the USDA has been paying all the taxes and expenses that come up. So I contacted their office too and just asked them if they would get in touch with us. And I went over and looked at it today to see how bad it is. It's really bad. I don't think it's allowing free access of people in and out, and that's one of the crucial things. But it's really deteriorating. So. Yeah.
Oh.
Then I looked at. I didn't see where that was, but point it out sometime.
It's
right?
Up there. It's not hard to see.
Yeah. One of the neighbors came out and told me that there was a problem with it and the walls are blowing out.
Townhouse lawn, you can see that gigantic hole.
Oh, I should go over there. All right, so I expect to hear back from them. I told them that we were going to go over there on the 15th. I don't think we can get in anyway. So on the 15th of June, we were going to do a walkthrough. And then the next thing is we have a property in East Hardwick. A person has been complaining, wanted the town to bring fill for their property, but the whole property is dropping off about like 100 feet down behind their house, and it keeps getting closer and closer and closer to their house. us dropping anything behind that house would be like, well, it'd be like nothing. You know, it'd be like putting something in the Grand Canyon. And so that's becoming a dangerous building because I'm afraid that the whole thing could just cave in and go in, and you know, there's older people in there. So
It's on the river?
the Lemuel's further up, but has done its damage over the years through flooding. And they would need an engineer or somebody there to put in some, you know, some base stone to support it. It's almost like where Route 15 slid down. It's almost the same thing as that, but bigger. And there's no way the town's gonna be able to deal with it. Plus, it's not our property, it's private property, and we really don't work on private property. We do give people fill once in a while. If we were going by and we're ditching or somewhere, instead of hauling it a long ways off, we'll dump it on somebody's property if they ask for it. But that's all we do, we don't do anything else to it, so that's that. And then we had a complaint of speeding up on Billings Road. The power company's building, putting in the electric solar panels up there, and the neighbors aren't really used to having people driving up through there, and they're driving at a fairly high rate compared to what the neighbors drive through there at. But it doesn't have a listed speed limit. So technically speaking, if that's a back road in Vermont, it doesn't have a speed limit on it, it's 50 miles an hour. So so we can't really arrest people for speeding on that road, but I thought I talked with Aaron today about the possibility of talking with the company management and asking them to go a little slower. The people go slower.
I think that's the best approach.
Right. So we'll see what happens. And I just want to mention that the library and the architects are preparing for their pre-construction meeting. There's a bunch of paperwork they have to have reviewed by the town attorney, and they're getting all that stuff together, and there's going to be a big meeting, and they'll be planning out the construction project. And then the last thing is, the town was awarded a $10,000 Northern Forest Center grant. You just have to authorize me to sign the agreement, the grant agreement.
And that's for Hardwick Trails?
For Hardwick Trails, for expansion of trails and work up there, yep.
Is that an item on our agenda?
No, it's not. I had it on my report because I think all you just need to do is just somebody do a quick motion to approve.
To have John
Sign
sign the grant agreement with Northern.
Make the motion to approve John Jewett to sign the agreement for the Northern Borders. Northern Forest Center grant of $10,000.
Second.
Perfect. Any discussions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, I think that's everybody. Any opposed? All right, great, motion carries, so
That's it.
sign away, that's awesome.
Done.
Yeah, and I'll go to work on the Hardwick Trails. All right, next up is the police department report. We have Aaron Cochran here. I know you sent us incident report that I looked at.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, only because we were having issues this week with the program itself. The state is actually going on to the same program now. It's the Department of Public Safety, or Agency of Public Safety as it's called now. It's actually going on. So they're working out the kinks because that's a lot more people on the, on the system, and that's using the system. So there's a few kinks working.
So the system is actually centralized, and you guys are like users of a bigger system?
Sort of.
Like Vermont.
You know more about this probably than I do as to how it works, but there are servers in Vermont that the system is on. Everything is cloud-based.
Yeah.
But there are servers that.
So adding the state adds a significant load.
Yeah. So we've seen a few issues there that we're working through, and they're figuring out what they have to do to make everything work the way it should. But yeah, so it's a little bit different report than before, but this is the one I could generate, and I got to work okay. So
thank you.
But really about the same information on it, anyways. Incident analysis and so on. She did that. The good thing is I'm waiting to hear, but there's talk that the state may take over the overall cost of that, so that the small agencies aren't having to pay annually for the use of that system. So we weren't paying a huge amount for that, and that's one of the reasons why we shifted to this program in 2014. Many agencies did, smaller agencies. In fact, so many went to it that the state really couldn't afford the system they were on, because we were all paying into their system. This system was cloud-based, much more reasonable, very user-friendly, you know, et cetera, and that's why many of us went to this program in 2014, many smaller agencies. So the state decided finally that they jump on so we can all have a centralized system, which makes it much more useful when we have all the information going in from around the state. So yeah, you know, it may save us a couple $1,000 there. If in fact they do pay for all the agencies.
Do people at the state level have the ability to pull reports? Like, do they have the ability to look at data across all the?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
As well
probably
as we
useful.
can. We
Oh, you
just
can
can't
too?
utilize it without asking permission from that
Yeah.
agency, but yeah.
Huh, so
Yeah,
if you want to see if there are broader trends
Yeah.
statewide, you can do that. That's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, we can do that. You know, if somebody that in particular we were dealing with, in say a criminal case, maybe somebody in South Burlington was dealing with that same individual in a criminal case, they can actually look at the information that we have, in the system, and so you get that same data throughout the state, so yeah. Yep. Burn ordinance, that's on here later. I did work on that and made some changes which we can go over later. Some changes that reflected what the statute actually said and the dollar amounts, et cetera, which we'll go into it later, but I did that. Casey worked on that. I think John probably played a part in that as well. So we have that for you here tonight. Cruiser ordering, working on that. Looks like at this point we had bids for Ford Explorer. Ford doesn't make a sedan anymore, so we had to get a bid for a Ford Explorer, as well as we got a bid for a Dodge Charger all-wheel drive sedan. The all-wheel drive Charger sedan came in much cheaper. It was about $10,000 difference less than the Explorer. So that's what I decided to go with. So we're in the process of getting that, which would keep us with the sedan, still all-wheel drive. Pretty much everything's the same as what the Ford sedans were, but big difference in price, definitely. So yeah, so we're working on that. Speed signs, we started placing those out. They've been on South Main Street. The portable speed signs that we have, those have been on South Main Street. So we got those out. If anybody has any suggestions or recommendations, you know, they're welcome to call us, and we can go from there. As in placement, we have ideas where to put them, but if there's, you know, we're willing to hear from the public.
I like seeing them right there.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
So I went by it and it seemed that, so there are others, like in other towns that I've driven by, where when they're apparently programmed with a speed limit for where they're sitting, so that when you're under the speed limit, it says thank you, and when you're over, it like flashes and says too fast. It looks like ours just...
Ours does not do that, no.
Okay.
We can set it for the speed, for what, so
Okay.
it's actually, we can set it, so you set the speed limit, and then you can set how high you want it to read the speed. So if, say your speed limit is 25, you can set it at, you know, to read up to 35 miles per hour, and then you can cut it off, so that you don't have those trying to see how fast they can go, you know, in reading. So it actually cuts it off as far as the reading goes. It doesn't cut it off as far as the data does.
I never thought of that.
Me either.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't cut the data off. It only cuts off what is actually visible.
And ours record the speeding data too, right? So they actually record the speeding data.
It does, yeah, yeah.
I went past the one that is just before Macville Road, and it seemed to be glitching tonight.
Yeah, the batteries are probably low. It's been out for about 2 weeks, so.
It was doing one number, and that was it.
It's usually about 2 weeks for the batteries on those are rechargeable, so then we have to pull them down and recharge the batteries again. But, our plan was, we talked about it yesterday, actually, is to pull it and put it in another area anyway, so it's been there for about 2 weeks, so. Let's see here, fireworks, I just throw a reminder out, and if anybody saw it, great display, this weekend, you know, on the fireworks, they were really pretty awesome. But I do want to throw a reminder out there because we weren't the only ones setting fireworks off, they were all over town. So I just want to set a reminder out there, people can get a permit for that. It needs to be issued by myself and the fire chief. So they can obtain those through the police department, and that way we know who has permits and who doesn't have permits, and so we're not chasing down calls.
At least one person had a John Jewett permit.
So did they? So they're very similar to, it's basically the same thing as a burn permit. It's just so that we know where it is. So we're not chasing these calls if they're, you know, so we post them after they're signed, people bring us a copy back. So just a reminder, it's easy to get one, just come and see us so we know where they are, that's all. Let's see here. Other than that, I guess that's, oh, as far as Jason was saying, I'll just speak on that quickly. I appreciate the thank you, we don't hear that very often. A lot of that is due to the going back, getting grant money from the Governor's Highway Program again. We were able to do, especially this last week, the Memorial Day campaign, the Click It or Ticket campaign, and that goes on annually across the country. We were able to get in 13 and a half hours last week of extra patrol on that grant. So some of that is, you know, is due to that and being able to receive that grant money again. And we did have, we did issue tickets as well as had DLS arrest as well on that. So yeah, so it was effective. We had some cell phone tickets, I think it was on that as well. So yeah, so that money helps us put out some extra patrols. So yeah, that's what I have. Thank you.
Questions for Aaron?
I just have a quick comment, maybe if we, depending on what happens with the ordinance tonight, maybe we could do like a front porch forum post or something as a reminder about how to get permits for, especially with 4th of July coming up.
That's what I was thinking, it was a good idea to remind people.
Because I didn't know that. I didn't set off any fireworks, but it's good to know that.
Yeah, it actually, the permit allows you to possess them. You actually can't legally possess them in Vermont without a permit in hand, so it allows you to possess them and it allows you to set them off. So
When you go to North Star, you have to sign off on them. You have to give them your driver's license and all that stuff. So I figured that was as far as a permit went around here. I said, I've been living in Vermont my whole life and I haven't ever got a permit. But don't print that.
Well, it used to just be illegal. So.
Yeah, it used to just be illegal.
Yeah, they were. That's right. It could have been even worse. Could have gone to jail.
I don't remember anybody ever going to jail.
No.
All right. Thanks, Aaron. All right, item 1 is discussion about pedestrian bridge community engagement workshop. Sherry.
Yes, so the engineer, architect, David Raphael was going to come tonight, but he had something come up, so he couldn't. But I am continuing to work on that event that is going to happen on July 17th in the afternoon. In the parking lot of the Daniels building on the north side of the bridge. And I put together a request from the Golub Foundation, which is the Price Chopper thing, the foundation that's philanthropists, whatever, that's connected to Price Chopper stores. And I've been successful with that for the townhouse, and so I looked at the cost of renting a tent from GMR, from Bob Cloutier, and then also having some sort of food element at that, serving a meal or having a food truck or something. Still working on that, but put together a budget for it and wrote a request from Price Chopper for $2,675 to cover that cost. So hopefully that will come through in the next few weeks. And we'll be able to just make that much better.
How long will it last? You said
It'll start around, well, yeah, I'm not absolutely certain, but I believe it'll start around 1, and there'll be like a session, you know, where whoever's there gets to talk about the bridge and look at options and tell stories about the bridge, or where they'll compile people's ideas and thoughts and stuff like that. Sort of interactive thing, and then there's like a break where we walk around and we maybe look at both sides of the bridge, and so they're facilitating all this stuff, and I'm not exactly sure how it works, and then there's another break where it's a dinner type of, where the potential meal might happen. So people are milling around and they're in the area, but the architect and the engineer are putting together 3 options from all of the input that they get, and they'll have 3 options that potentially could happen based on what's available with prefab bridges, but also talking about both sides of the bridge and planning for maybe other things down the road, like a park or recreation area along the river. I don't know. Who knows? But then people will come back together and they'll get to vote on what of those 3 options they like the best, and that's our community engagement process. To be
really
further
boring on this point, it's from 1 to like 3 or 5 or 7 or?
It would, at 6 at the latest.
Okay.
It may be 1 to 5, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Kind of depends on how the flow goes.
So figure the whole afternoon.
But is it the kind of thing you wouldn't necessarily have to stay for the whole thing?
You might not have to stay for the whole thing, you might be able to come late, you might be able to,
Right.
come and go.
You said July 17th?
July 17th.
Which is a Saturday. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I know so far.
Doug has a question.
Yeah, related, I've been asked several times, I know there's some complex funding going on. Have you guys got any clarity about the ARP funding, the amount of that, and when it will come in yet?
It's not there.
We decided not to apply for the ARP funding. We applied for a fairly large grant from...
The American Rescue Plan.
You're talking ARPA.
Yeah, ARPA.
Oh, ARPA?
Because what I heard yesterday was that amounts to $249 per resident.
Okay.
So that's what I heard, so I don't know if you guys have gotten any clearer picture or...
The last thing that I heard about that was, so that is unrelated to the bridge, except that it's general funding that's going to come to the town. For the bridge, we applied to USDA for, I think, $200,000. And we also have, through a different division of USDA, we're going to be able to reapply a previous grant that we had to that project. So we don't know about the USDA funding yet. That's still in process. We hit one step where they said we were eligible, I think. But so we crossed a certain threshold, but we don't have a decision. We haven't been granted that money yet. But it's looking good for having funding for the bridge.
Okay, I just said that at one point that the ARPA might be something that would be considered as additional funding.
It could be. So my 2 cents on that is I went to a webinar that the LCT hosted where they gave information about what was going on, and it sounded like we should be very patient, and we should be aware that we'll have a couple of years to basically say what we're going to spend it on, and then we'll have a couple of years more to actually spend it. So I don't think there's any rush.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Engineers, Wayne Elliott told me that what he's heard so far is $98 a person. But I think it's $98 per person for the first round, and then the second round would be $198 per person, but that would be allocated next June. But I think the closest number we have is $282,000 for the first round. We have no idea what will be the second round.
Okay, thanks, John.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just a follow-up, we talked about putting up a big banner on the swinging bridge. Do we have money for that? To put up a banner that says community meeting about the swinging bridge July 17th, like on the actual bridge? Is it safe enough to, could Tom do that safely?
Could Tom do it? No, that's why it's closed.
Could we do it from each end with like a hook or something? It's just a great billboard. Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
Somebody can explore that.
okay.
Okay.
We'll just,
Could be you. Okay.
sounds like it could be me.
I don't know, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
See. But, yeah, I'm not going on that bridge. I gained weight over COVID. No, that's not gonna happen.
You're not gonna test it?
Some little, 30-pound kid.
We could get the electric department to use a bucket truck.
There you go.
Oh, there. Perfect. Problem solved. All right. Again, so that's great. Thank you, Sherry.
But definitely some new posters and stuff like that will go up, I hope, in the next couple of weeks. It'll come together because the workshop facilitators create a poster and I want to build on that and start putting the word out that way.
So it also is the kind of thing, do we have a rain date? Because it sounds like a very outdoor
No,
focus.
because we have a tent.
Yeah.
A big
Okay.
tent.
All right, fair enough.
And
Got
it's
it.
a better way to go.
All right,
I think.
got it, yeah.
We got a big tent.
All right, beauty. Thank
Yeah.
you, Sherry. Let's move.
It will shield us from the sun if it's not raining.
Great. Item 2, select board to review and consider request from Hardwick Rec Committee to put money into their capital fund from this year's regular budget. And I assume that's why Jason's here, right?
Yeah, and Holly can jump in too.
Okay.
So our actual budget was $27,053. Our actual expenses, I think some of that is because of COVID, we couldn't run a lot of programming. Things had shut down. There was no actual coordinator salary going out. So the actual expenses from 7/1/20 technically till 6/30/21 were $7,474.31, leaving $19,578.69 left, which is a lot of money as surplus. We're asking for $5,000 of that to go to our capital fund for unforeseen expenses, like the ice skating rink, possibility of putting benches and a picnic table, things like that up at Macville. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell from my perspective. I'm not sure if there's ever been a surplus that large in the rec.
We moved some money when we were doing the Macville playground once. We had asked, because it's just such a long process, that we needed a match for a grant. And so we had a surplus and we moved it. And we've been denied once. So we've asked a couple times.
And with such a large surplus, I'm really hoping that the consideration is there because
Yeah.
there's a large money that would be going back into, I think, the town fund at that point, if I'm not mistaken. So that's pretty much where I'm coming from.
So question, just procedural questions. Does rec currently have a capital fund?
We do, but it has zero.
Okay. And if we were to do something like this, do we have to do it before June 30th?
Yes.
Okay. So, I definitely support the work of the rec committee and appreciate all you guys do. I guess I will just throw out there that yes, it's a big surplus. All operating budgets under the town come in at the end of the year with nobody hits their number. Mm-hmm. So everybody comes in under or over budget and we hope that it all evens out. And I don't know where we're gonna land this year, but I don't know. So like just so you, I mean, I hear your request, but just thinking about it in the broader context, like we don't typically look at, like if the road department, highway department comes in under, or the police comes in under, we don't typically slide any excess to a capital fund for that department. Like it just goes back into the general fund, or sometimes it helps offset if somebody else has gone over. It helps offset that expense.
Do you see this as a dangerous precedent?
Not necessarily. I mean,
It's definitely a precedent.
well, we've done it before.
I just feel like if we, you know, for grants and stuff like that, like, again, like, when we were doing the Macville Playground, we needed to show that we had the money as a matching grant. You know, if we start any more big projects, you know, that recreation park in Hardwick, I'm assuming the town of Hardwick owns it, is so underutilized. I mean, it's just an empty field and there's so much space.
Which,
The one down on Cottage Street. It says Hardwick Recreation Park on the
Oh, you're
sign.
talking about that little ball field down there?
Yeah.
That's kind of, that was donated to the town, and the locals, local people in that area were utilizing it for T-ball and stuff like that at one time.
It was very underutilized.
Yeah.
I just did T-ball there, and they literally are there for maybe 5 weeks, and that's it.
Right.
It's just this huge open space, and it's so underutilized, and I mean, I'd love to see another playground go centrally in Hardwick. I mean, the one at Macville is great, we utilize it all the time, but I know the kids down there are so many kids on those streets. They use Atkins, but I had to speak to them the other day because they're throwing rocks at the top of the brand new pavilion. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, I feel like we need more things in town, and it's hard to do when our budget is so... We don't, like, if we needed to get a grant for anything, our budget's so tight that we don't have the money to be like, oh, we do have the match, or...
I can give you some advice on doing capital funding. Normally, capital money's intended to go into a budget for a project that's gonna have long-term, like, putting in a playground, or buying some piece of equipment that's gonna last a long time. And I know in my past experience with the board, they never really liked putting money into an account and not really knowing what it's going to go for, especially in a capital account. It's not really capital. The thing is, though, we've done it before. I think Trails had money given to them and put into their account, but they were targeting buying a snowmobile, a new snowmobile. So that's why they were able to do that, even though there was a lot of discussion about it.
but the town didn't, in that case,
It was given to them.
it was donations, it wasn't town money that went into that fund.
Right, as I recall, it was extra money in your budget, but it was donated money.
It was all donated money.
Right.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little harder to do that if you don't have a project you have scoped out. The other thing is, though, there's no reason why you couldn't keep this, you know, bring it back to the town and ask for an allocation of $5,000 to go into a capital account, or some money to go in every year into your capital account for capital expenses, like taking care of, well, that's operational, but for doing replacements and things like of parts of projects, yeah.
Well, I guess that's my question. So with the rec budget, the way it is right now, there's a line for maintenance and basically capital projects. Also, full disclosure, I'm on the rec committee, so I know the budget. So that line is what, Jason? It's like $2,500 a year.
No, it's two.
It's $2,000 a year.
There's all kinds of lines right now that are kind of muddy because of COVID, I think, so.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
really, like, you know, it really put a stop to everything we were thinking about doing, because it just, everything stopped. And now it's like we finally got to meeting again. We were in between coordinators, and now I feel like we're finally getting back together, and we're at the end of the fiscal year, and we're like, as soon as that next fiscal year rolls around, like, the money's allocated already somewhere, so it's hard.
So I totally understand the feeling of we get to the end of the year and like we haven't spent all the money that was allocated. It feels like you're letting an opportunity go.
Yeah.
I mean, I think just to be aware that that's the case for all town departments.
Well, I guess I was just going to say to what John was saying in terms of capital funding, and a lot of our, all of our departments have money going in for projects, so that way we're not spending out a huge, we're planning for that.
Right.
So if the rec committee is essentially already planning for that, because in their budget they have a line item, but they just, if they don't spend it, it just isn't spent. I'm wondering if that line item basically became their capital fund line item. It wouldn't really change in their future budget. Then it's kind of what you're saying, it's like building for those projects that's different than your request tonight, so I don't want to complicate it, but that is something that the rec committee has been, like, there is a line item in there for those projects, so.
So contemplating that when we do budget next in the fall, potentially sliding that 2,000 or whatever to a capital, and then it doesn't go away.
And maybe it sounds like a future conversation, but.
So I don't mean to come across as being the negative Nelly here necessarily. I'm just throwing out the contrarian point of view. Jason?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, so we have all these itemized things in our budget, yet we have no real monetary pull if things come up, like to buy a picnic table that's going to last, or for benches, or repairing the ice rink that does need to be repaired. Sort of like our maintenance budget is $2,000. We need to maintain the ice rink, and we don't have that money. What do we do as a rec committee then? Where does that money actually come from? So, because we have no capital.
It comes from another line in your budget.
Okay.
Like you can overspend on, you can underspend on something else and overspend on maintenance.
And I think if you wanted to argue that the ice skating rink is a long-term piece of equipment and you need to make improvements to it, I mean, you could argue that you could pay for that with capital. You could allocate money into a capital account for that, then you don't lose it, and then you have the money to replace it. Actually, you could call it a replacement fund for the skating rink. And you could just have that in there and you could put money into it every single year. Then if sometime along you needed it for something else, you could ask the select board if you could transfer it to something else that's more important, but you'd have money in that account. That way you don't ever you don't have to give that money back, and it builds.
Yeah, I mean, it's a better way to save if you actually have things that can be considered to be capital. So isn't there also, from an auditing perspective, don't we have an issue where we wouldn't want to be putting money into capital and then using it for operating expenses?
Right, I wasn't saying that, but I'm just saying.
Right, things that are really capital.
Yeah, you should be using.
New playgrounds, or picnic tables that are long lasting.
But I think like replacement of the skating rink wouldn't be, you could say that's capital.
So how much is it going to cost to repair this?
We don't know yet. Okay. We have to kind of assess the tubes and the liner and things like that, kind of go back at square one. The thing that confuses me is that there's
that it's broken.
Oh yeah, I'm the one that cleaned it up. It's got several holes. A lot of the piping is cracked.
I just find it tough to look at the itemized piece of the budget and say, where do we take money from that's important versus, because we have no capital. So we have to figure that piece out.
So looking forward for the fiscal year that's starting July 1, you're anticipating with COVID receding that you're going to be spending all your budget on what you said you were going to spend it on, the operating budget for that coming year.
That's what we're foreseeing, yeah.
So you're not seeing,
all the programs will be back up and running, yeah.
So if you rephrased your request and said, we have a broken ice skating rink, our budget for next year is allocated because we're going to have all our programming back. This year we're under, and the ice rink and some picnic tables are a capital expense, we'd like to reallocate. Which is kind of maybe what you said to begin with, but not the way I heard it.
More or less.
Seems like it.
You just need to have a target project for it.
All right.
But in terms of timing, we would need to basically approve that tonight, right?
No, we can do it
Next week,
Okay.
Or next meeting, week after next.
Casey, is that tight for you, or?
As long as the service gets performed before the end.
No, the service, no, we just slide in to reallocate out of their.
Oh, okay, I thought you were gonna use money like.
Not use the money, but.
Oh, yeah, that's fine, yeah,
That's fine. Or we could just say they're asking for 5,000, which we think would cover the rink.
It should, yeah. I mean, the rink brand new was it went over budget, I think it was 3,000 something. And that was brand new, but we won't be working with that company anymore, so we're kind of starting at square one with the rink.
Maybe nice to save money and itemize and say we need 4 of the tubes and the liner to be replaced for this amount of money, kind of assess what you have rather than reinventing the wheel. The other thing is getting the, I think there's steel and they're rubber coated picnic tables that lots of parks have, that you can lock up to something so they're not stolen and hit, you know, they're not gonna rot. It's not wood. Get a couple benches from Macville. It's such a unique little spot, yet there's nowhere to sit. There's no picnic table up there.
Actually, there's 3 picnic tables, 2 benches, an adult swing. Because we put up...
So those are back out?
We put up, they've always been out. They've just kind of been pushed off to the side when people weren't supposed to use them. One of the picnic tables was damaged this winter, so it needs repairs. They all need either repainting or sanding and stained, like, they need works again. But the bench, we have 2 benches that are the steel, plastic, whatever they are, but there are 2 of those up there. But it's such a big space that we do need more up there. Because we also have the grills up there now, and it'd be nice to have a table near the grills.
So it does look really nice up there, and when I go by there somewhat frequently, and I am surprised, frankly, how many people use the playground. It's, I never realized how many
And that's
people
why I
use it.
really want to figure out that park in town, because
It would be like 50
I think it'd be a really great spot for a playground, and right centrally located.
So,
I can't call a motion because I'm on the committee.
you're gonna.
So I'm abstaining, but
Can I ask
if we're at that point.
one more quick question? So there are 2 projects that are kind of like, I don't want to say back burner right now, but they're kind of being looked at a lot of energy right now. One is a basketball court in town. I have somebody who's willing to invest in the whole project.
Like an outdoor one?
Yeah, an outdoor full court. And I've had a lot of people approach me about getting some funding to help redo the tennis courts. Those are used all the time. The school struggling. Yeah, the school says, well, we don't have that money budgeted right now. However, moving forward, if you did fundraising or got donors or whatever, we could itemize it in the maintenance piece after the fact. So, could we say some of this money could be allocated to helping assist the basketball court or the tennis court or something like that? Those are community recreational things that are just, that tennis court's horrible. And people want to use it, they just, you know.
Eric, am I right in what I heard you said is they need to go away and rewrite their request? So there are specific targets that this money would be used for?
Well, I was just thinking reframing it. I was reframing it in my mind, basically. That they do have things they're thinking about targeting for that are actually longer term items. So I'm happy to go either way. If somebody feels
The urge to make a motion.
yes,
Right.
or we could also do it next time if you want us to see
I think it
more
would be a
detail.
good exercise for them to sort out, what they want to spend this money on.
What we're saving toward.
Yeah, what they're saving toward, and it's help them clarify their vision, because there's been a lot of things come up that are going to way exceed this $5,000. Sort of set priorities and come back with this is how much we want and this is what we're going to use it for. Does that make sense?
I don't know how to word a motion, so I'm gonna wait. But I'm in favor of figuring out how to get you
Yeah,
money
yeah.
to do that.
We can do that, we have a meeting next week, so we can
Okay.
get that figured out.
And when you're setting up that request, you really need to target major equipment that you're renovating or replacing, not an operational cost. Otherwise, you should just put it in your operational budget.
But it sounds like they got that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure they understand.
And there are plenty of things, you threw out a whole litany of things that could be appropriate.
The tennis courts, you're going to refurbish them. I mean, that's a major project.
Those are in bids through the school to do those, so we know how much the school is going to contribute.
Yeah, there was a posting on Front Porch Forum asking people to make donations for the tennis court.
So in perspective of that, and just in general, to take up more time, if we came back and said, could we take $2,000 of that money we have to apply that to the Hardwick or the Hayes and Tennis Courts Fund, that would suffice that piece enough to grant that amount?
I would think so, if you're renovating it.
Right.
And you're just part of the renovation, you're not gonna pay for the whole cost.
And it also seems pretty complicated to parse out that $5,000. I think personally, like if you said, we want to allocate $5,000 for these capital projects, at a later date, you could say, we need $1,500 for the rink, or we need $2,000 for the...
Right, exactly.
That's what that's the general idea, right?
Yeah, you just say these are the top three things that we're working towards, or one.
I mean, it sounds like I mean, all those things could easily exceed that 5,000, so you might, but if you had that there, you could spend it on an ice rink when it needs next fall comes around. So if we did just say that have 5,000 slid from operating to capital. I don't know.
Long line, sorry.
All right.
I'll make that motion. Let's just do it. Why string it out until next time? We all know what
We have
we're trying to
visions, like,
accomplish.
we have big visions for what we want to do with the recreation in town.
I'll make the motion that we go ahead and allocate or bring 5,000 out of the unused operating and put it into their capital for the stated repairs and replacements.
One time.
Yeah, for the one-time repairs of the list.
Do we have a second? So discussion, I have a question that I'm gonna look right at Casey and ask, where are we likely to land overall for our budget? Do you think? What's your feel? Because last time you gave us a quarterly report, it looked like we were doing okay.
And we are at 85% right now.
And so barring anything really big, we're probably not going over, like unless there's some big outstanding bill.
So if you figure an average, like an additional 8%, then we'll be like, I think we'll land around 95 to 97%.
Oh, that'd be beautiful. So close.
Yeah.
I like coming in close to our budget.
Yeah. So that's through today, like right now, we're like 86, so I would say.
So that's pre-motion, but still up to today, up to the minute almost.
Yeah. It is up to the minute. All right, so I'm okay with that, I guess, knowing that it sounds like we're on target to come in about at budget. We're not going to be, you're not worried that we're coming in over budget. You're not fearful about that right now.
I think we're going to be really close. I think we're going to be like between 95 and 100, yeah. Like 95, 97-ish, yeah.
All right. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's all of us. And we have one abstention with Kaylee. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, how are you turn? Select board is item 3. Select board to authorize town manager to sign the step 3 construction loan application and amendment for the wastewater treatment facility upgrade project. So there's two things, but I think we need to sign one.
You have to sign it too. You have to sign it too. We're along with me.
Yes, the step 3 application is signed by the board and by John, and then he can
And the step 3 is the state revolving loan fund.
It's the next stage for construction of the reconstruction of the wastewater plant.
And the amendment is to make A&E the engineers?
On-site engineers,
Yeah.
the project engineers, they're gonna do the bidding, help negotiating, and handle the construction phase. That's $318,825 is the amendment.
Yep.
Yep, that's it.
And with all that, we're still within our budget.
And you can continue to flush.
So needing a motion that we have John sign the one and then we just sign the other one?
I think two things. I think we need to have a motion that we, that we approve the step 3 Is it
this
Construction.
construction loan.
the step 3 construction loan, and we're gonna sign it, so we need a motion that we approve that.
Or authorize or approve? What's
I don't
the
know.
word?
You're going to approve the financing for the step 3 construction loan, and you're going to authorize, which means you're going to sign it,
Yes,
and then you're going to
it's two
authorize the
things.
town manager to sign off on
The other.
on the loan as well.
On the loan and the amendment.
Yes, you can put it all together if you want to.
So let's do 2. Let's do 1 to approve the
Step 3.
step 3 funding.
So,
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's everybody, so motion carries. Then let's have a motion to have the town manager sign both the step 3 and the amendment to the contract with all.
As a town representative.
so moved.
Yes.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. That was everybody, right? Liz, that was you?
Yep.
Aye. Okay, so yeah, that was unanimous, motion carries. Thank you. Oh boy, so now we need to sign. This is terrible. All right, so next is item 4, select board to review and consider appointment of downtown commission members. And so we had a great, I mean, I have to say, I was very impressed with the enthusiasm that came out for this downtown thing. I think we had 10 or 12 strong applications for people who have business interests downtown. I mean, I think it's really good. So, but we can only take, we said we had 5 to 7.
It has 5 to 7 members.
So unfortunately, we can't
Does that
take
include the
everyone.
chair?
Yes.
Yep.
So, I'm thrilled that people are interested and excited about this, and of course, the folks that we aren't able to appoint are going to be welcome to help us along the way. So I will nominate myself and Katie Tandy, Gary Michaels, Tobin Porter, Bethany Dunbar, Emily Hirschberger, and Sandy Scott to be on the downtown commission with me. And I've told all those people that I'm willing to chair it, and they're all happy to allow me to do that. So we'll...
Any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of nominating the slate that Sherry just provided to the downtown commission, please say aye.
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 I am not going to abstain.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna-
so that's everybody, so
Can I just repeat the list, Sherry, please?
It's,
No, just so I.
read it back.
So
Yeah, read it back to
you,
us.
Katie Tandy, Gary Michaels, Tobin Porter Brown, Bethany Dunbar, Emily Hirschberger, and Sandy Scott?
yes.
Okay.
So just for fun and games, Katie Tandy is the co-owner of the coming soon Birdsong Beer and Wine on Main Street. Gary Michaels is retired from business and is in East Hardwick. Tobin Porter is the owner proprietor at Front Seat Coffee. Bethany Dunbar is the, I'm not sure what her...
Outreach coordinator for the...
for the Center for Ag Economy. And Emily Hirschberger is the general manager at the co-op. And Sandy is the co-owner at the Galaxy Bookshop. So,
Great.
yeah, I think it'll be a good group.
Yeah, and really impressive, that strong slate of applicants.
Yeah.
It's hard to choose, but
Yeah.
it's great.
It's hard to choose, but I think it's a good, because it kind of like
Good mix.
gets it gets people that are in business downtown, but also kind of all sides of it in a way. Yeah, it's hard to not, I let Wiz off the hook, but we're going to ask her to help us with like projects, walking tours, historic related things.
Excellent.
And I let Tracy Martin off the hook because she will help us anyway.
Good.
Yeah. and
Awesome.
everybody else is probably happy to be not on the,
Or they can help you.
yeah.
All right, great, thank you. And we move us to item 5, which is to review the final draft of the burn ordinance. This is the ordinance against illegal burning, which has been updated with language about a fine, right? Is that right, Aaron? There's language about a fine and there's one other thing, right?
Who's primary and secondary as far as responsible for investigatory action?
So the fine is under Article 3, number 1.
And what we did, or what I did there, I looked at, so that particular paragraph referenced the 24 VSA 1974A. So I went back and I looked at that statute. It was originally written as $500, but that statute actually is $800. So I changed the 500 to 800 as to reflect what the statute. Yeah. And they may have changed it from when they did that ordinance, or I don't know, but, and then I went in and looked at 24 VSA 2201, which actually references the illegal burning of trash, etc. And the waiver fine for that is 400 to a maximum of 800. So I wrote it to reference that statute, and then, you know, kept in the $100 per consecutive day by all of that. That's all kept in there, and explained what a waiver penalty is, which actually was in, it's not, I didn't reinvent the wheel. I just went to one of our other ordinances that actually explains, that section was in there. So I put that section in which explains what a waiver penalty is. So I did that, and then did primary, secondary under Article 4. And kind of tweaked that a little bit. Shipped it to Casey with a recommendation of, because of the changes, we did have Bill Davies take a look at it. So we did ship it to Bill. Bill shipped it back. Didn't rewrite any of it, but put the work on Casey to make a few other changes she can probably speak to. I don't remember what those were.
Yeah, it was just like the little section sign on some of the statutes was missing in several spots. So we got that corrected, and I got his final blessing on everything, so.
All right. So the only thing I'll note coming off this is that this creates an ordinance that if the statutes change, we'll have to revisit, because we're basically just reflecting a statute, right?
Correct. Yeah.
For that section of the ordinance.
Well, kind of for the ordinance. Like there's already state statute that prevents illegal, that's why it's illegal.
I honestly don't know how you could do it otherwise without putting it in there, because you're referencing the statute, which the statute was under current day gives the amount. So I don't know how else you would want to do it. But
the only other way I can think of is to not have an ordinance and just say, Aaron, we need the police department to respond to calls of illegal burning.
I mean, obviously, if you didn't want the ordinance, then there is a statute, but already in place.
Yeah. But the inspiration for this entire thing was largely because people didn't seem to know who to call when there was trash being burned. And, yeah.
It's fine, I'll step back.
Now they know who to call, and now they know who's in line to enforce the statute.
It's all fine, so
I did, upon Bill's recommendation, we took Doug's Cassavant's name specifically out of the document in case it changes. However, I did go on our website, the fire department kind of has a page. So I went to that page, I put in all of the first chief, those roles, and I also included Doug on there as the forest fire warden. So his information is on our website.
Oh, great.
With contact information.
Awesome.
So that way, if it were to change in the future, we wouldn't have to update this, but it's all on the website.
Is this going to involve having a coordination meeting with the police department and the fire department? And the forest fire warden?
As far as I'm concerned.
No, nope.
As long as you're not primary, right?
Just wondered, that's all.
Fire department, yeah. Fire department puts out fires.
So who goes to this, so if there's a fire, who's gonna go to it?
Well, primarily it's, according to this, it's the forest fire warden's responsibility.
Yeah, but if someone calls from a place I won't name in Hardwick and says, my neighbor is burning trash again, I can't go outside because it's toxic fumes and I'm about to pass out and die. They're gonna call the police, they're not gonna call the fire warden because it's not a forest fire, it's a trash burn. So now that person knows who to call. Those neighbors in that area know who to call. They call the police. They do not call the fire warden. And if there's a big bonfire being set up that includes painted wood and other things that aren't logs and brush for an outdoor party, they'll call the fire warden first and see whether there's a permit. And if they find out the fire warden hasn't heard about this and doesn't know and isn't interested in going over there, then they'll call the police. I mean, these are scenarios that have occurred, but they call me instead. So now I'd like them to know who they should call. Yeah, I'm not, yeah. So my expectation in having this ordinance is that it helps people to know who to call. And when they call me still, I will tell them, no, you call the police because they're gonna go and check that out, right?
I guess that it's good to hear that, Sherry, but that's not what this says to me. This says to me that the forest fire warden is the primary. And so I guess if the point is to clarify it, what this is telling
Is not what you just said.
is not what you just said.
Well, the one that I wrote said that. The one that has been revised, which is what we have, if that's the way it needs to be, that's fine. So if they call the forest fire warden out of turn, then the police are secondary.
So what happens is that I talked to, with Bill and length about this, and what happens, as a police department being secondary, it doesn't take us out of the equation if something needs to be dealt with. But we're not firemen, and if there is a fire, it's hard to determine what that fire is, and it really should be the forest fire warden or fire department determining the fire. They don't necessarily have to determine enforcement action afterwards, but they should be the ones. We're in a fortunate position right now where our fire department and our police department, especially on the weekends, is primarily dispatched by the same dispatch. So generally, we all know what each other is doing all the time. When a call goes out.
Doesn't dispatch know who has burn permits too?
Yes. Yeah.
So if somebody just calls the PD number and gets dispatch.
Yeah.
They'll
get dispatched no matter what number, whether they're gonna get dispatch, fire or PD, yeah.
They're gonna be, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's sorted out through dispatch.
Right, they're gonna figure out, is there a burn permit or is there not?
Right.
Oh, good. That's just another reason to call you guys' number and not mine.
So no matter what number they call, they're gonna get dispatch, our dispatch center. What has happened in the past is the dispatch gets a call, they've called the forest fire warden, and he may not have been able to respond for whatever reason and turned around and called us, and we went and checked it out, depending on, that has happened in the past with different calls. So, but fortunately, our numbers are all going into the same dispatch center, so.
Can I ask a really quick question before making a motion? Do all parties feel like this ordinance clarifies the issue?
Does it meet the objective?
Does it?
I hope so.
Okay.
It pretty much says we'll all help each other, is what, how it was written there. I think it pretty much says we'll all help each other out, whoever needs enforcement. Some of the concerns, obviously, when we talked with Bill, is that for one, it is a civil ordinance. Hardwick has very few town ordinances, and police departments generally are enforcing criminal statutes and not civil ordinances, with the exception of town ordinances, but this town has always had very few primarily. We don't even have an open container law, so, you know, there's very few ordinances. One of the concerns I had was, you know, police departments or the police showing up on a burn complaint and going on to what's called a curtilage of somebody's property, which is their land. Under a criminal statute, we couldn't do that without a warrant. Under a civil statute, Bill explained why that is allowed, etc., but it is a very blurred line for some people and would may cause unnecessary confrontation and go downhill from there. So, you know, in discussion with Bill, he certainly saw, you know, what I was saying, and that he agreed that really the fire warden or fire department probably should be the first person to show up, and then the police department to support, you know, from there as a secondary if they needed for some of those reasons.
I can read what he said, which was, as far as entering private property, the right to do so would be similar to the right of a fire department to enter upon private property to extinguish a fire. If, for instance, the fire warden saw a fire burning, he or she would have the right to enter the property to protect the public safety. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Sherry and Aaron and everybody else for putting so much work into this. I'm going to make a motion to pass the Town of Hardwick Civil Ordinance for regulation of open fires and incineration solid waste.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
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 That's everyone, motion carries. So
The way the process goes,
there's a waiting period, right? Do we need to post it too?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You guys will handle all that.
Yeah, that's guys.
Thanks, Casey.
Thanks, Casey.
Thank you, Casey.
All right, next, where are we?
6.
Thank you. 6 is to,
What?
because we have, John is now serving as town manager, we need to assign him to a few accessory roles that we typically assign to the town manager. We need to make him the deputy health officer, the delinquent tax collector, the Central Vermont Solid Waste Management District alternate representative,
Holy cow.
town safety officer, and the a member of the Caspian Beach Committee.
Is that all in your contract?
does he have? So, yeah, I am wholly capable of handling the solid waste district. John doesn't have to be an alternate. I'm gonna go to those meetings and be part of that, so it's up to you. I mean, we can make you be it, but you're not gonna end up.
I won't be going anyway.
Yeah.
Scratch that one.
The
It's all
best was the
just on
Caspian
paper.
Beach Committee. When do I have to be, do I hang around up there when it's sunny?
You can't drink there anymore.
What? There's no open container law.
No, but we passed an ordinance, I don't know why. Danny told me I could still drink, he said, it's not for you. I don't see that in there.
It's for those who can't do it right.
Apparently, I don't know what it was for, but I didn't like it. Anyway.
And then when we get to our budget season, we're gonna take a look at that town health officer thing, right?
Yep.
We're gonna take a look at whether we wanna make a change to how that works.
See if someone else wants to be
We may even do that before that.
health officer, as opposed to having the town manager do it. But, you know, we'll talk about it.
Future meeting.
Kind of.
Okay.
But there'll be a-
Just thought I'd put a pin in that.
That's a great idea, yes, so that's in the works to think about that.
Yeah, I'm the deputy, and there is a health officer, but it may be time to make, because of, it seems like there's a lot of demand for that service, that there might be worthwhile having someone who actually does that.
Yeah.
That has it as an actual
A
job.
role, yeah.
A role, yeah.
Like
paid role.
not just a,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not just a fill-in guy who's, it's a fill-in guy.
I'll move that we assign
Yes.
John Jewett as the deputy health officer, delinquent tax collector, town safety officer, and Caspian Beach Committee
Member.
member?
Yeah.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's everybody, motion carries, thank you.
That was
Thank
a
you,
quick one.
John. Next up is item 7, the select board to review and consider approval of the fiscal year 2022 water expense budget. Water, sewers next time.
Yeah, we're gonna do all the different.
I thought,
Yeah.
okay.
Did
you say what?
I thought you sent us sewer. You sent us water?
Water.
I was showing you the sewer budget today, just showing you.
Oh, just to confuse me?
Yeah.
I see.
Success.
Exactly.
No, I did not put it up on a screen, but
That's good.
everybody has it, and it will, when I post the minutes, it will be in attachments for everybody to see anyway, so. So basically, we obviously try to keep it as minimal as possible. I would say, basically, we have, you know, our standard salary increases, and we have, we reduce line maintenance a little bit, and our capital fund transfer will need to increase as our bond payment for Bridgman will, we do already have some money for that, so we're kind of only reserving a smaller amount for these next couple of years, but we'll have to pick it back up to make sure that we have that payment covered. And so we did do a $3,000 increase in capital fund transfer, but overall, the overall picture is only an increase of about $3,000, amounting to 0.98% is what we're proposing. So,
That's good.
That all looks good.
yeah, so then shifting over to kind of the capital plan, you know, we did do some well refurbishment this current fiscal year and some work on some of the pump houses, and then we have obviously the meter bond, we have the Bridgman bond, but I made some notes about that, what the payment is for Bridgman, so we'll have to be sure to pay that. But I think overall, things, yeah, this is a good plan, because we know obviously a lot of customers have water and sewer, so we anticipate a higher increase in sewer due to the bond project, so we wanted to really keep this as minimal as possible.
Sewer or bond? Well, the first payment will be due.
We'll have an interest payment due fiscal year 22, and then the full payment 23, so
Okay, so
that's kind of what John and I are working on right now, because we're just trying to make sure that we don't do a drastic shock. Like, it's got to be sort of a gradual increase for the ratepayers and not just jump up one year, so we're looking at that.
When are we discussing rates?
Well, usually we do that in
Like, just the
September,
beginning?
like.
Oh, I thought it was
We start,
July,
the
August.
committee meets August, September,
Yeah.
once the last reading has been done. And then I think by the second meeting in September, we usually approve those. So for that first billing, September 30th, they'll have the new rates for the first quarter.
I would like to see us move gradually to a rate structure that is a little more usage-based and has a little lower
Base rate.
because I think that was part of the point of putting in the meters, and I don't think we ever really realized that. I mean, I think.
No, we realized it, we just didn't want to.
No, we haven't realized the change.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was gonna say, we realized what we were doing, because we
No,
didn't
no,
want to have a lower base and
Yeah.
too high of an overusage, because they did that in Barton.
Yeah.
Now they pay like $1,500 a year for water and sewer, so,
But now-
because everybody left.
Now we're a couple of years into it, and I see,
Right.
you know, in my own little world where I pay my bill and I pay my dad's bill, and my dad is one person who uses almost no water, and we're a family that goes over our water usage every time, and the bills are almost the same.
There could be, you could do that, I think. We'd have to think about it a little bit.
We
It'd
just
be
have
for
to-
people who are really low users.
Well,
Might have a different
I
rate.
think we can just, or we could just ratchet down what the base rate is,
Yeah.
and look more to overage.
What you have to remember is that you have fixed costs, and you never budget flexible money to a fixed cost.
But some utilities do, like Hardwick Electric does,
Well,
because it's only like $13 a month to be hooked up.
the rule of thumb is you don't do that, because if you do, you're gonna someday, because the flexible costs are impacted by a bunch of things. They're impacted by the usage,
Yeah.
it's impacted by permit requirements, it's impacted by things that can change every year. And if you turn around and you do that, your rates could actually be fluctuating all over the place because of that, or you lose that flexible money and you can't pay your fixed costs. I mean, I do this training in this area, and that's one of the things we say, look, take care of the base first, worry about the rest later. So you might create a whole nother class for low users.
Yes, so I think I want to be part of that conversation this year.
I think it's a good conversation.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Welcome to join the committee, Eric.
You just don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to make a mistake and
that's what I said.
Right.
I was thinking move slowly, so that you don't push people too hard in one way or another. But anyway, that has nothing to do with it. It does have something to do with the budget, but it's not directly related. It's not the item before us tonight. The item before us tonight is we could approve the water budget, which is both the operating budget and the capital, right? Are people happy with it?
No one's ever happy with it.
No, what are you kidding? It's less than a 1% increase. What do you mean? You gotta be happy with it. And our water's good. It's hard, but it's good. It is very hard.
If it wasn't hard, something would be
soft.
And if it was soft, you'd have lead and copper problems. So
right.
So I'd rather have the hardness and not the lead and copper.
It's not as hard as Burlington.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just have to move to East Hardwick.
I heard that the capital fund over there is really good too. So if anything happens, you guys are all set.
Yeah, ready to roll. Right.
It's not as hard as the water I grew up with either.
Me too, actually.
It doesn't taste as good either. We had the limestone water, which is wonderfully sweet.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there.
Are we just going to roll on, or if nobody makes a motion?
Are you looking for a motion?
Yes.
I move that we approve the budget, the water fund budget.
Great.
As presented?
As presented.
As presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's everyone. Thank you. Motion passes, and thank you guys for working on the budget. That looks very good to me. Next, item 8, select board to review and execute contract for fiscal year 2022 dispatch services with the Lamoille County Sheriff's Department. I had a bunch of questions about this, but I got them all answered.
Really?
Well, I think so.
This 3565?
Yep.
Really?
We figured it
Oh,
out.
I answered it myself.
Yeah.
No, Casey helped me. She said, look at page 2.
Well, I quickly tried to run a couple scenarios, like with the numbers, to see where the percentage came from, but then I ran out of time, so I'm glad you found it.
Do people care about my questions, or we just want to go?
I would like to hear your questions, Eric.
No. Really? Or
Maybe not all of them, but look, there's one that I hear.
Not all of them?
25, 65.
Okay, so there was, in the calculations, there was, basically it looks like they back out the rescue dispatch. So it looks like it's calculated just total dispatch by town, right? And then they back out the rescue, I think that's what it was. And when they back out the rescue, when they did it for Hardwick and Greensboro, they did a split for the dispatch, and the split for dispatch for rescue was 35% Greensboro and 65% Hardwick. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Because for years, when we had a police contract with Greensboro, we thought, well, we did a 24%, 76% split was what kind of we started the conversation with, which was based, I think, we don't have this documented, but I think that was based on just population with a weighted average summer-winter population for Greensboro. So I went and looked, and apparently the way Lamoille County Sheriff's does it is they break everything, their dispatch service up. 50% of it's weighted, and 50% of it is the population, and 50% of it is your grand list. So if you use the population and grand list weighted equally, and you just look at Hardwick and Greensboro like they have to do for rescue, the breakdown is actually 35%, 65%.
So they do it on both, they do it on, actually, after they break it out, they do it again on the rescue costs.
Yes.
They get the allocations first.
Yeah.
And then they further tailor them for the rescue squad using the same.
But it just struck me
Right.
that over the years we had.
That's interesting, I didn't.
Right, it's just interesting, it's not really important, but, or maybe it is, I don't know. But
It is,
Yeah.
it's just an interesting, and because, you know, it's hard to know, like, what's a fair distribution, so it's interesting to see somebody do it a different way, based on population and grant list, and I am curious, and maybe I'll follow up it someday and find out, like, is that more standard, is that more equitable, I don't know.
Just to let you, for people who are watching, just to let you know, they go on a 600-person population up in Greensboro because they don't take the people who own property, they don't live there full time. And then it's 3,200 people for Hardwick or so, give or take a few.
Just under 3,000 on the report. But
yep. And then they look at the grand list, and the grand list for Greensboro is what, is it 260 million? And somewhere around here, and Hardwick's grand list is 200 million. So what happens is we pay a little more on the population, well, a lot more on the population, and then Greensboro pays a little more because they have a higher grand list.
Yeah.
Because their properties are worth more around the lake and stuff like that.
there were other towns in the report too, but those.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So does that also mean that are we paying the full cost of the dispatch?
So we pay our share, so their dispatch was.
But we're not, but because Greensboro is not a part of our dispatch now, are we paying less?
No.
Greensboro always paid for theirs. He billed each town individually for police and fire and all that, so. Yeah.
And they do that for every town that they serve.
And there's a list of, what, 6, 8 towns, something like that.
Okay.
So anyway, and it's not, I mean, honestly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there isn't really another option for dispatch.
It's more money. We checked with Berrytown, we checked with...
It is their best option.
With Montpelier, we checked with that group of people, that kind of nebulous group there in Berlin, and everybody wanted a lot more money.
So,
the one that never developed.
The nebulous group, yeah.
and it actually, the dispatch costs went down.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
And we've utilized it more under our current makeup of, how people are shifting. So, we're getting more for our money right now.
Especially with this fire ordinance we just passed.
Yes, and the fire ordinance.
Yeah.
All right. The only thing I would ask or add is that we still continue with not having Greensboro for the coming year. It won't be as big of an issue. Greensboro was much worse as far as communication and receiving communication. I think we've done this in the past, that we've sent along a little caveat asking them to continue to work to improve
the radio service in Hardwick.
Yeah. So I would ask that maybe you add that in there.
Yeah, that's
if you decide
a great idea
or whatever, but we're still not, we can't use portable radios on Woken Street because he's using towers on Davis Hill and.
But don't we have the repeater up on the hill?
We do. He doesn't have. I've tried to. So we utilize it. When our dispatcher is working, we utilize that, which gives us great communication in town. He doesn't have as I understand it, he doesn't have a radio in his console, in his dispatch console.
That'll handle
that repeater. He never put it in. So they don't utilize our channel, which I would certainly like for them to do, because we went to all the work of getting our own radio channel, getting our own repeater, all of this, and the grant work to do it, but it's not utilized on a regular basis.
That service, yeah.
And so that service would greatly improve, the communication that we have here. It is going to cost money on his end to put in the radio equipment in the dispatch console, as I understand it, and that hasn't happened yet.
You might get some county money to do that now, ARPA money.
So, yeah, it's a good time I think really to push that. We really need to see improved radio communication and work with us over the next year to try and do that.
Yeah, that's great.
And the new proposed addition to the cell tower over on, what is it? Hopkins Hill, is that even in the,
That's AT&T.
yeah, it's another AT&T thing that's,
Completely separate.
that they're working to do. But AT&T continues to push forward that they have all the emergency, they have all that first net stuff. And so they always put that forward when they're trying to justify these projects.
Yeah,
But nothing ever seems to improve. What the heck?
Because
So that's on the phones, so the first net is on the phones, so it does give us priority access, like all our department phones and, the cell phones have priority access. So just a quick example is when we had the bank robbery in 2012, radios were tied up, everybody was coming, and radios, you couldn't get through on a radio. I tried getting through to Lisa that was at the office to dispatch and start trying to coordinate things, and I couldn't get through even on the phone. It was not possible to get through even on a cell phone. So what FirstNet did, we weren't the first or this has happened with phone networks getting tied up. So what they did was they developed a FirstNet system so that police, fire, EMS have priority access. So we would override the system. The SIM cards that we have are different that are in the phones. So it actually overrides the system. So we take priority in a case like that, or a mass casualty, or anything where the phones are really getting tied up.
You have what you need there. In other words.
At this point, it could be better, but it definitely could be better, but.
It's the service, the service isn't necessarily that, the signal that you get is.
No.
Right.
No.
But the distinction, I think, between that and regular dispatch is like regular dispatch, aren't you using a radio?
Radio waves, yeah.
I mean, cell phones are radio too, but it's different bandwidth.
Two different, yeah.
So this is a radio, like a walkie-talkie.
Right, yeah.
So that's what we need Roger to improve. We need him to put our repeater station, whatever it is, to use.
Radio
in his console.
That would be great, but.
So we should send a letter to that effect.
We're definitely willing to work what we're paying and have consistently paid for many years now, over $250,000, close to $500,000 since we've been with, that dispatch center. And it is a reasonable cost, I'm not saying it's not. And they've provided a reasonable service, but it would be nice to, I know other agencies is dispatching for, such as Berrytown Police Department, he dispatches for, I think Franklin County Sheriff's, he was at one point in time, I don't know if he still has it. They have their own channel, and they came after us.
So it's technically possible.
Right, so it would be nice to.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question, sir?
Fire away.
Would you mind putting, just going to ask him actually, could you put together a letter and using the terminology, what radio, it's not crystals anymore, it's something else that they use in the radio, the channel and everything. Can you put that together and just say, just do a basic letter just asking for that, and then we can have
It can come from the town manager's office, or it could come from the select.
A select board chair, I think would be good, because then that kind of bumps it up a notch.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds fine.
Can you do that?
Put it on letterhead and I can sign it.
What's that?
I'll work with it.
Okay, thanks.
So these guys will work on a letter, and I'll be authorized to sign on behalf of the select board.
Yeah.
We'll do a motion to do that.
Yeah.
And we'll approve this.
Yes, so moved or whatever. I'm just thinking about the letter, and I want them to acknowledge the receipt of the letter, because, we can send a letter and they don't have to say anything or respond in any way. So somehow in that, somehow in that letter, they need to acknowledge the receipt and let us know what the timeline is for them to make that improvement. And if they reply and say, well, there is no timeline, but we got your letter, fine. I think it's just more effective to ask for some
Yeah, no, it's a
acknowledgement.
great idea. I don't want to give the implication it's a bad service, that's not what I'm saying.
No,
The
but
service is good, but it could
It
be better,
doesn't
and I'd
sound like
to
it
work
would be a
towards being
huge
better.
thing to request,
Yeah, right.
and to improve that exponentially.
Yeah, sounds good. It's a lot safer for officers that are out there dealing with stuff, so.
Yeah.
And do we need to sign this tonight, or
We've got to get it ready, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
So I just said that you, board authorized a letter to be sent to Moyle County Sheriff's District for making the necessary improvements and to authorize Eric to sign the letter on behalf of the board. Is that what your
Yeah.
motion was,
Sounds
Sherry?
That was
Yeah.
what her motion was.
That
Okay.
sounds good, yeah,
Okay.
excellent. Couldn't have said it better.
And Liz says second.
Okay.
Okay, so all in favor of the letter, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You said aye? So that's all everybody, so that passes. And then what about a motion to accept the proposal for service for dispatch?
So moved.
Second, so I'll give it to Sherry.
Sherry gets a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, everyone, so that passes too.
You know what, 7:30, right on the money?
Right on the money, yeah.
Yes.
Can't believe it.
You sound so surprised, Jen.
I was shooting. Okay, select board reports.
Did you want to make a report about that V-Trans conversation?
Oh, yes, please.
Just a little something, so people know.
I read it, I read the minutes.
You know, so
Okay,
people,
yes,
so
yes,
people
you're
know.
right, You're right, you're right, you're right.
You-
So, okay, so, Sherry and I and
Sean and John
John.
and Tom.
Tom,
And-
but not Doug Morton, I think. Anyway, we all attended a kickoff meeting for the planning for,
Next year's paving.
for next
Yeah.
year's paving, for V-Trans is paving, the state highways through the village essentially, is what it
So
amounts to.
14 and 15.
14 and 15 in the, sort of in, you know, the urban.
The class 1 road.
Class 1, yep, and they very kindly reach out to towns when they're doing this and ask if we want to participate in the process, which we do. So, basically, the process has started. Oh, we also had, Jonathan.
From Local Motion.
Local Motion there. And we had a conversation about, sidewalks and parking spots and, possibility, crosswalks, possibility of bike lanes, where, you know, is there space for them? We also talked about, they asked about, you know, places where the pavement's really wide, like on Route 14 South, where we have no parking sign because it used to be sidewalk and people always park there next to the buildings. And by Macville Road, where people park next to the road. So there's a lot of discussion that's just starting.
It's gonna involve the town possibly putting in some new improving sidewalks and bump outs.
Or possibly V-Trans is,
Right,
Yeah.
it's unclear.
right,
They're gonna bring us into compliance.
kinda.
If we ask them to. Basically, it's a choice, because they said if you don't want us to, then we just won't paint anything.
Right,
But if we
as
want-
far as the
what-
curbs and it's curb to curb or whatever.
So what we
There's a
said,
possibility that one of the blinking crosswalk signs might end up getting installed during this process, you know, that we found out were really expensive, so it'd be nice if we had some help with one of those.
Yeah, and so I think basically in the past, what we've done is, I think, is we've said, when they offered the choice, we said, no, don't paint any parking spots, don't do anything over there, and we'll take care of it, because when they paint them into compliance.
You can't park a pickup in them.
You can't, but you also can't park like,
It's not true.
you can't,
Not true.
Small pickups.
Yeah, if you get a giant pickup, then you have to deal with it
but I think
yourself.
this time we more or less said, we'd like to have focus on pedestrian and bike safety downtown, especially pedestrian safety, and so if that means we lose a couple parking spots next to the crosswalks, if the crosswalks are then safer, then let's look into that.
Well, they're pretty dangerous right now. When you
They are.
drive down the street, the cars are right up next to the crosswalks and,
And you can't see people who are
yeah,
coming out.
you're supposed to have like 12 feet on each side of the crosswalk so you can see the pedestrian.
Yeah, it's a problem.
You know, people, at that point, people get mad that drivers don't stop, but the reality is drivers can't see them.
Right, exactly.
When the cars are parked right up to a crosswalk, it's just
Right.
not possible.
Right.
I will say, I noticed, where we have the blinking light on the one, I know there'd been discussion before about who uses it, who doesn't use it, et cetera. I will say the younger generation using that, so even if we've lost hope with our age, the younger generation coming up, we can train them to, to use the lights properly and so on. But I know they are getting utilized, and I did see people using those, so I think they're a good thing. Yeah, I think it does. I think it is. And I think, getting rid of some of these spots, in my opinion, is gonna certainly make it safer because, yeah.
Was there a conversation at this meeting about local motion doing something similar to what they did in Greensboro, or is that a different conversation?
Not really, no. Because this was more about the paving than a local motion actually, but they shared the study that they did in Hardwick. But, the truth is when local motion did that, we didn't have any participation from Hardwick. So if you look at that study, there's 1 page in Hardwick and there's like 4 pages in Greensboro and because they had people involved in the process that they went through. So we just didn't get a lot out of that. So my recent suggestion was that we share with them also our recommendations that the select board has accepted from the pedestrian and traffic safety group. So now they have that to look at as far as like where we wanted to potentially make changes or whatever, so that they can take that all into account.
But it seems like a good process, and they're willing to listen to us. And they may tell us that we need to pay for things if we want changes, but there are other things that they may not, because they're treating it as bringing us into compliance for something.
Right.
And so does it go all the way to Glenside, or where's the?
It goes past Glenside, doesn't it? It goes almost to 16. They said it goes to where they stopped.
But that was right by Glenside, wasn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, just on the other side of Glenside, just over that hump.
Before the curves, okay.
I did ask, although I don't think it's part of the project, I also asked, is there anything they could do about the sight lines there where Glenside meets? I don't know, it's probably not.
They said we'll look into it.
May as well ask. Because they did tell us we can't put a stop sign there. I mean, a stop light or something. We had a petition to put a stop light there.
A roundabout?
Oh, we put a roundabout with a big hump and some rocks. All right, sorry.
That's good.
Long. Anything else?
And that's happening fall of '22, meaning
More than a year.
just a little over a year from now, that's gonna be happening. And they talked about doing it at night so that it's less disruptive. But we'll have some sort of public information process around it as it gets closer.
Yeah,
right?
and they provide somebody to do a public information process. They asked if we want somebody, and we said, yeah.
You said, yeah.
Why not?
That's great.
Wow, I have a feeling Highland Avenue is going to get a lot more use.
Yes, for a short period.
And so we probably should think about having Highland Avenue one way and West Church Street the other way.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Because people are going to use Highland Avenue and West Church Street, and two-way traffic on West Church Street is, lots of it is a problem.
Yeah.
The big trucks will be interesting.
Sometimes two-way traffic on Highland Avenue is a problem.
It is.
The trucks won't be able to use that route to go to Cottage Street Bridge because there's too much of the angle. They won't be able to utilize
They'll
trailers.
have to wait at the construction. But if construction happens at night, that's what the area we're talking about was really just the downtown.
There are a lot of trucks go through there at night.
Yeah, a lot.
Tom said that his experience is that if there's definitely a time at night, it sounded like
10 to 2, he said, right?
That was even later. That was like 3. Anyway, he said it's really pretty quiet.
Yeah.
And so if people have to wait
11
a little
to 2
while,
is pretty
it's different than waiting in the middle of the day.
Yes.
much longer wait.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. All right, anything else? Select board reports, new business, old business? 3, 2, 1 break. All right, so hearing none, we adjourn at whatever time it is.
7:39.
7:39. Beautiful.
Lousy.
Thank you guys.
Sherry made us
Thanks,
go over
everybody.
10
Thanks for
minutes.
coming in person.
What?
You made us go over 10 minutes.